And what they're now seeing is that the rate of cases, the rate of new infections, is doubling about every 3 days. We had projected the apex at about 110,000 hospital beds, and that's the number I've been talking about. The anticipated need now for the height of the curve is 140,000 hospital beds and approximately 40,000 intensive care unit beds. We are exercising all options as aggressively as we can. That rate of increase, that apex, they project at this time could be approximately 14 to 21 days away. There are 3 elements that are necessary to increase the hospital capacity. First are obviously the availability of the beds. A bed without staff is virtually useless, and a bed and a staff without the right equipment is virtually useless. So you have to complete all 3 at the same time. As far as beds, hospitals must increase their capacity by 50%. The goal is to ask them to try to increase it by 100%. Even if they did increase it by 100%, you'd only be at about 100,000 beds. You need 140,000 beds. Emergency hospitals like the 1,000-bed facility that's being built here will be helpful, but they're nowhere near the number of beds that we're going to need. I have no problem using the dormitories all across our state campuses. I'm speaking to hotel owners about taking over their hotels to put patients in. I will turn this state upside down to get the number of beds we need. But we need the staff for those beds. And we're calling and contacting all retirees in the healthcare field. We're calling all professionals in the healthcare field, whether or not they work in a hospital. They can work in an insurance company, a clinic, or whatever. But we want to enlist as many staff as we can and as many backup staff, because healthcare workers will get sick. And this is going to go on for weeks, and you can't ask a person to work for 14 days consecutive or around-the-clock shift. And equipment, masks, PPEs, and ventilators. And of those 3, the greatest critical need are ventilators. We're going so far as to trying an experimental procedure where we split the ventilator. We use 1 ventilator for 2 patients. Picture 2 hospital beds, 2 people in beds, 1 ventilator between the 2 of them, but with 2 sets of tubes, 2 sets of pipes going to the 2 patients. There is no other way for us to get these ventilators. We've tried everything else. The only way we can obtain these ventilators is from the federal government, period. And there's 2 ways the federal government can do it. One is to use the Federal Defense Production Act. There is a federal law where the federal government can say to manufacturers, you must produce this product. I understand the federal government's point that many companies have come forward and said, we want to help, and it does us no good if they start to create a ventilator in 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks. We're looking at an apex of 14 days. If we don't have the ventilators in 14 days, it does us no good. The Federal Defense Procurement Act can actually help companies because the federal government can say, look, I need you to go into this business. I will contract with you today for X number of ventilators. Here is the startup capital you need. Here's the startup capital you need to hire workers who do it around the clock. But I need the ventilators in 14 days. Only the federal government has that power. And not to exercise that power is inexplicable to me. Also, the federal government has 20,000 ventilators or thereabouts in the federal stockpile. Secretary Azar runs an agency called HHS Health and Human Services. I asked the secretary, Look at the first word in the title of the agency you run. It is health. Your first priority is health. You have 20,000 ventilators in the stockpile. Release the ventilators to New York. How can we be in a situation where you can have New Yorkers possibly dying because they can't get a ventilator, but a federal agency saying, I'm going to leave the ventilators in the stockpile? I mean, have we really come to that point? The federal government has to prioritize the resources. Look at where the problems are across this nation. California has 2,800 cases. Washington State, 2,200 cases. Florida, 1,200 cases. Massachusetts, about 800 cases. New York has 25,000 cases. New York has 25,000 cases. It has 10 times the problem that California has. 10 times the problem that Washington State has. You prioritize resources and your activity and your actions to where they are needed. And New York, you are looking at a problem that is of a totally different magnitude and dimension. Also, there is a smart way to do this. Deploy the ventilators around the country as they are needed. Different regions have different curves of the infection. New York is the canary in the coal mine. New York is going first. We have the highest and the fastest rate of infection. What happens to New York is going to wind up happening to California and Washington State and Illinois. It's just a matter of time. We're just getting there first. Deal with the issue here. Deploy the resources, deploy the ventilators here in New York for our apex, and then after the apex passes here, once we're past that critical point, deploy the ventilators to the other parts of the country where they are needed. I will take personal responsibility for transporting the 20,000 ventilators anywhere in this country that they want once we are past our apex. You know what they say? I'll do it, but I need startup capital. I can't turn my factory overnight into a ventilator manufacturing company. I have to buy equipment. I have to find personnel. I have a lot of startup capital. Will you give me the startup capital? Will you give me an order that says if I go through all this, you will buy X number of units? It's actually a pro-business mentality, not an anti-business mentality. This is a false distinction. Well, we don't want to tell business what to do. You know what business wants? They want to make money. That's what they want. They want to put people to work. They want to open their factory. They want to make money. Let them open their factory and make money. That's what the Defense Procurement Act was all about. It is not happening. FEMA says we're sending 400 ventilators. Really? What am I going to do with 400 ventilators when I need 30,000? You pick the 26,000 people who are going to die because you only sent 400 ventilators. We're going to make it because I love New York, and I love New York because New York loves you. New York loves all of you. Black and white and brown and Asian and short and tall and gay and straight. New York loves everyone. That's why I love New York. Love wins, always, and it will win again through this virus. Thank you.